even worrisome.
That was a really tough current.
And the cable. Do we have a line down?
The first concern is to account for all 9 divers. 6 are back, 3 continue to film.
Everybody on open circuit are back, so everybody else left is close rebreather.
Now, what happened to Matt?
I think he was just being pulled all the time.
Being what?
Pulled back.
Pulled back?
The cable was like straight along the bottom and then it went up instead of being right over the top of us, so we all had to pull the cable so that he had slack to do the lighting.
Current just kept...
Oh yeah, the current was just ripping.
That was the problem initially. The cable was being laid out was bending because of the current, so that I came down.
It felt like a windsock in the breeze. I think the next time we should just swim farther.
I'm glad I had this computer with me. My first decompression on a rebreather.
Yeah?
At night.
Yeah.
With no light.
On a swinging boat.
I was glad to find the boat.
You know, we try to plan the dive and everything falls apart. We were half an hour late meeting you.
Yeah.
Because nobody was ready.
Well, thank God we were on rebreathers because we just sat down and kind of waited.
Yeah.
So it was okay.
But we're still missing 3.
On rebreathers, the camera team remains below for nearly 3 hours, filming and decompressing. There is concern, but confidence in a team with vast experience.
Where are the divers?
They're on.
They are there.
All down here?
It strikes here, but as soon as you get around on the other side of the ship in the wind.
I know, it's staying in one spot and
Yeah.
trying to get
Right
that
there, there was
cable right up
current.
and down.
We could barely keep up with. And there was no line down.
You
See Eve anywhere?
Yeah, they're both at the deck right there.
This is a mask angelfish. This is a 2 mask angelfish. That's beautiful.
Still excited about the stupid fish that are there. They're always there. They're predictable. They're worth $7,000 each, and we cannot touch them.
Well, did we get some good stuff?
No.
No?
Well,
Next time. Next time we'll get them. We'll get them next time. I'm ready. Let's go right back right now.
Every dive possesses new challenges, but the ultimate success is that everyone returns safely and the journey continues. After a difficult night dive, the team is ready again at dawn. This time to go even deeper and to test a new underwater communication system.
Who's talking on the rebreathers? Blair and Matt.
okay. So I will be speaking from here with both of you. Make your answers very short, very crisp, as much as you can, so we can see how your voice may change as you go deeper.
198 feet is the maximum you want to go at a 1.5, all right? Continue the film, do your dive, and then later on, once you come back up, you know, stay at 1.3 until you finish your deco at 20 feet. Change it to 0.7, come to the surface.
She's so old. She's so cold.
Made it.
Chief diver Blair Mott wears an advanced full-face mask, equipped with a wireless microphone and radio transmitter.
Diver 1, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, topside. I've hit 60 feet. We're still at 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
60 feet, 78 degrees. Wonderful. I hope it stays that way, guys. Over.
I read you 5 by 5 on that last transmission. Over.
Divers can communicate with the ship to depths of 200 feet, sometimes deeper, and with each other as well, improving safety and permitting real-time reports of wildlife.
I am down at 174.
You are down to 174. Over.
Along the ridge is a gigantic stingray is now swimming along the ridge. One stingray for the Pacific Northwest Hawaiian Islands. I'm now going to remain off the air for a moment and dive speed
You were cut, but I understand the dive team is on its way toward the pass. Over.
Yes, roger that.
Have a wonderful dive. Thank you.
They're watched by a monk seal, by sharks, and by jacks. Further evidence that large predators patrol these islands in unusual abundance. Four white-tipped sharks resting along the bottom prove as wary of humans as tiny reef fish are. The team has hoped to observe sharks hunting, but both the sharks and jacks seem passive by day. It may take a special night dive to observe their feeding behavior. Ahead, the most famous island in the northwest Hawaiian chain, an atoll whose airstrips evoke memories of a decisive World War II battle fought off its shores.
Tout ça pour des raisons militaires.
Today, Midway Island is a refuge run by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But once, it was both a strategic naval base and, in the days when great clipper seaplanes crossed the Pacific, a mid-ocean refueling stop, a service it now provides to the research vessel Searcher.
They're very sensitive about oil here. You know, that an oil spot the size of a quarter will kill a seabird. And so, because there's so many seabirds here and marine turtles and monk seals, they don't want to have any risk of losing any oil whatsoever during a fueling operation.
And that's because we're going to refuel.
Correct.
So how's your voyage been so far?
Beautiful. Really nice. Good weather until Pearl and Hermes
This
when
wind,
it got
yeah.
sort of snotty. But
Well, it's kind of funny because last year we couldn't buy a stitch of wind or a cloud.
Right, right.
This year it's been wet, actually. So
has it been wet here? It's
we've had a
dry
lot
as
of rain.
bone
We've
there.
had a lot of rain, in fact.
It's really
Much
really
more than
dry.
like last year. So we didn't have rain the whole year, and now this year.
About 40 wildlife and operation workers live year-round at Midway.
Basically, in 1903, the Trans-Pacific Cable Company came to Midway to set up the first telegraph line across the Pacific Ocean. That's where Midway first came to be important to the U.S. government. This was just blowing white sand, and they basically went across the island and planted vegetation every square yard. That's what they call Old Radar Hill. That was a radar installation in World War II on top of the hill.
On top of the hill, you call that a hill,
That's the high point, man, right there. If there's a tsunami, that's where you head, right there to the top. Supposedly in here, there's an underground hospital buried. Yeah, that's our biggest bane is this verbicina right here. Well, it doesn't make it unaccessible, but it makes it real hard for birds to land and stuff and use it. Hang in there, stay over there, stay over there. This is the old cross runway. There's the active runway runs this way, and this is the north-south runway.
Is that an emergency one, just in case?
Well, yeah, a real emergency. This is it's known as Rusty Bucket. Basically, at the end of the runway, the military decided to bulldoze a bunch of metal and stuff into the ocean here, so hence the name Rusty Bucket.
Midway has long served as a stopover, not only for aircraft but seabirds. Some 2 million birds nest here under the watchful eye of the Fish and Wildlife Service.
You sound like your mother. Really?
But wildlife managers can't protect birds that feed at sea amid floating debris. The carcass of a single adult reveals a fatal feast of garbage.
So you're talking literally 150,000 pounds of land, marine plastic comes on the island each year as landfill, really, inside the birds. 150,000 pounds.
50,000. From 300 nesting pairs.
300,000 nesting pairs.
What's the name of it?
Droop wing.
Droop
Wing, yep. Something that contained lead for some reason he got a hold of.
Because of the contamination on the island.
Right, which could have came in as a marine debris from another bird, or just the paint, a paint chip got picked up or something, and that's how it affects them.
Yeah, 1940s and 50s, they were still using lead-based paint. So I think a lot of these buildings here.
That one, no matter what, no matter how well fed he's going to be, will never make it.
Right.
Fishing nets lost or dumped at sea may be the most damaging refuse of all.
This is 80 tons. The estimate is 4,000 tons in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands. We don't know the accumulation rate, but this is something that's staggering, and it has to be dealt with, and we're doing the best we can do, and I'm really proud of the people that are working on this and spending the time.
Diving only with snorkels, volunteer net grubbers working for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, scour hundreds of square miles down to 40 feet looking for damaging nets. This day they're assisted by the Cousteau team.
And now we have this marine debris problem, which is caused by 6 or 7 countries in East Asia that rather than pick up their nets and take them back and mend them, they throw their nets in the water.
Along the way, these reefs are being destroyed by this material, picking up live corals and literally destroying everything on its way.
Nets and debris are carried from around the Pacific by circular currents, a kind of vast whirlpool concentrating trash at the center of the ocean, the Northwest Hawaiian Islands.
The real heroes right now are these young 20-year-olds coming out here and spending all summer volunteering and removing this stuff.
Nice job, Megan.
It was 542 pounds.
Well, mission accomplished. I believe now you can head back to Searcher.
This is a great team you guys got here, all working together. It must be one of the most thrilling things in your life to be doing this.
Yeah, everybody works well together. We have a good time.
I'm just really glad that there's a whole generation of people that are interested in doing this. And they will be the leaders tomorrow that hopefully will help solve this problem.
In mid-Pacific, a solemn moment. The team has carried here ashes of a friend lost in the past year, diving pioneer and publisher Paul Zimmerlis.
Paul went to many ports of call while he was alive. He was a true gentleman, loved by many.
Well, he was a friend of the ocean, a friend of all the divers, a friend of the diving industry. Paul is missed and will be missed, but he's part of the ocean, and as we have dedicated this expedition to the memory of Paul, may his memory live for a long time. Thank you, Paul.
Finally, tiny Kure Atoll. 1,200 miles from Honolulu, the farthest point in one of the most remote island chains on Earth. They've reached their destination. The problem is locating a safe anchorage near the pass that leads into the lagoon.
Up in the interior right here, this is what we're saying. So this is a corresponding satellite image right here.
You see these reefs.
There is a long history of ships running aground on Kure's reefs, stranding crews for months while they built rafts to sail all the way to the main islands.
The whole bottom here.
Yes, we got lots of undulation.
Well, you saw the whole bottom is
Anything you really like?
corrugated.
If you're comfortable. Yeah, I like that.
Any of that, like.
Calling Kure, this is Research Vessel Searcher on Channel 16.
Kure is a favorite site of spinner dolphins, which appear like a welcoming committee, perhaps exhilarated by the rare arrival of a ship here. The dolphins take turns racing about with the branch of algae, as if playing a game of catch. Unlike the other islands in the chain, Kure is managed by the state of Hawaii, which stations one wildlife biologist on this lonely outpost.
5 years ago, I got involved in spinner dolphin research. Lived on Midway for 5 years, year-round. I just got off there last year in March. I actually took over this position up here, and so we're going to concentrate more on the spinner dolphins here now. About 60 of those individuals actually were residents of Midway when I was there, and they chose to move to Kure in 2000. A group of them did, about 60.
Do we know why?
No, but I probably should have moved here then too, because this is a better place. You're only talking about, to walk the whole perimeter, about 3 miles. It's a radar reflector that the Navy established in 1936. They put this out here just pre the war. President Truman then in 1950s turned the island over to the state. So that's originally how this island came to be part of the territory of, maintained by the state as opposed to the rest of the islands.
Oh, okay.
Kind of have to put priorities on what you can do. There's more here to do than you can actually do. The marine debris on the beach is a project ongoing year-round.
So, the label is still on there.
Yeah.
With bryozoans growing on it, and then still a plastic label, sticky thing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You can call them up and order some more.
Yeah.
No, I like it because I need a candle holder, that last night's lovely dinner.
You're going to take it off.
I'm going to put the candle in. Well, it's
There must be a
plastic.
passion somewhere for someone to move to such a remote place.
Kure's always been my favorite. It's the first island I ever came to, so that might be why. But it's also very contained and it's abundant with wildlife.
With an immense population of Galapagos sharks, Kure may be the place where the team can at last observe sharks feeding. Swirling with life, Kure is the marine paradise the team hoped to find. Its rich schools seem like glistening apparitions of what once thrived on the dead reefs of Waikiki. At night, crowds emerge under cover of darkness. A young octopus, arms coiled defensively, is both hunter and hunted, a favorite prey of monk seals. Finally, a glimpse of sharks gorging themselves on reef fish. Then they come face to face with a well-known monk seal, number 030.
030,
Yeah.
the monk seal had come and visited the underwater team on the water.
Yeah, that was wonderful to hear that was her, because she is one of the oldest females that when the tagging started about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, she was one of the first animals that were tagged. So we actually know how old she was. She was a pup when she was tagged. So we know that she was born here at Kure, and she's actually moved. Occasionally she goes to Midway and pups there. And she's back over here. She pupped at Midway this year, and now she's back here. And she's actually a very large animal. We don't think they live much longer than 30 years, so she's at the tail end of her life, but still reproductively very active. And this is the preferred pupping habitat of Hawaiian monk seals, and you find on the west sides of most islands in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, you have these nice deep beaches and the shallow area right here, which is what the females look for. The tiger sharks do cruise the beach, but it's fairly shallow, and they can take their pup in the water and nurse, they just stay with their pup for about 4 weeks, so they need a quiet place. And what actually happened is there was, a tennis court down there, and they had some boats, and it wasn't anything anybody meant to do, but they did disturb all the females off these sites, and the reproduction went to zero for many years, from the 60s into the 70s, and all the females chose alternate pupping sites, which aren't preferred, which turns out to be that little island out there called Sand.
The little sand spit.
Right. The mothers would pup on those little sand spits, which are ephemeral, and some of them would be washed out over at night, and they'd lose their pups. Once everybody realized why the pups weren't surviving, and they closed off this, especially this beach right here on the west side, the moms came back and pupped there, and we have 20 pups a year. About 5 years ago, there was an event that occurred up the chain, an unusual mortality event, essentially, where juveniles weren't surviving. Pups would survive about 6 months, starve to death, and die. And we're experiencing the same problem. There's absolutely almost no recruitment into the population. Hardly any young animals are surviving, and nobody really understands why, although they're really trying to study that and understand is it prey-based. They appear to be starving. Every single individual of this species of monk seals is considered critical to the population at this point. You've pulled a real significant piece out of the picture when you pull one animal out of 1,500, or we now think it's not 1,500, 1,200 and declining. So we could be watching, the second extinction of a monk seal. We watched the Caribbean go extinct in the 50s, and the Mediterranean most likely will be extinct in the wild. I think that when you get an animal at this point, it's critically endangered, the management becomes dangerous, because we're doing things that we're intervening into natural situations that have been skewed by us in the first place.
At her mid-ocean site, Cynthia also studies the largest of all seabirds, albatrosses, some of which fly around the world.
In this atoll in particular, albatross have been banded since the 50s. So we know there's some very old birds, and getting band returns on those birds is really exciting to see how long they're living, 50 years. We think maybe even 60 years,
Cynthia cares for a fledgling she calls Lanai, hatched in a nest on her porch.
Because we know she was hatched here, and when she's a chick from this year, she gets a band on her right leg. Anybody that gets a band on their left leg is somebody that's been banded after. We don't know how old the bird is. So we know how old Lanai is. This is the bum wing right here. It's okay, you gotta hold that head behind the skull. Go on up. This band could last 40 years. That's it. So we're gonna put her in her cage. I'm gonna go ahead and take over. I'm sorry, honey.
Because Lanai failed to grow flight feathers, dooming her in the wild, Cynthia asks the Cousteau team to help transport her back to a wildlife park in Honolulu.
I think she's a good ambassador for the species. I think, we do outreach programs, and it would be nice to bring the real thing to show young people what a beautiful bird this is and appreciate it. And that's your mission. Go for it, Lanai.